on the Mount Hood National Forest today, and I've got a very, very special guest, an individual who has 55 years of service with the U.S. Forest Service and is one of our assistant directors for forest products in Washington, D.C. Well, he began his career here on the Mount Hood, and this is going to be his story. And also, as you'll get the story of those folks who are currently working on the Mount Hood, who are working on the same ground. This ought to be fascinating. Let's see what happens.
And I started my career here on the Mount Hood in 1954 as a lookout. Worked the next summer in 1955 as one of the crew members laying out timber sails, and then came back full time in 1957. Well, in those days, we worked all types of jobs. In other words, those of us who were here worked on the pre-sale crews in the summertime, laying out timber sails, and that would have included cruising, surveying the units, surveying and locating roads, and then in the wintertime, we designed roads.
Earlier you heard Fitz allude to back in the day. He did it all. He did everything. The forester was the person who laid the foundation for the road. They surveyed the road. They designed the road. They designed the timber stands. They designed the areas. They had a 5-year action plan they were working on. Well, that's what we used to call sort of a multidisciplinary situation. These days, it's all interdisciplinary. I'm the silviculturist. I don't work alone. I work with a soil scientist. I work with a wildlife biologist. I work with a fisheries biologist. I work with a hydrologist. All these people go through the same areas that I go through, and we look at a myriad of different things on the ground, but something within our particular area or our field of work. It's a team effort, and that's how we operate today. That's a little bit different than before.
I first realized there was a position of soil scientist in high school when I was sitting in the library reading through a book on all the careers you could do. And I thought that's what I'd like to be. I took some detours along the way, got married, moved to where my husband was, and so at the time I was thinking it was all the wrong moves because I had to quit being a soil scientist because there weren't any jobs over on the Okanagan. But in retrospect, I worked in silviculture, I worked as an inspector, I worked on the road crew, I worked as a marking crew foreman, I worked in sail layout and design, and then I came back to soil science. And it gave me a really good background on what goes on in the Forest Service.
My forestry career started when I was in the 7th grade, and I was given an assignment to write a paper on some career choices, and I picked forestry, and I never looked back.
I guess I had an opportunity to either go to the Forest Service directly out of college or go to work for the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. And I decided to go to work for the Tribes at Warm Springs because they paid $0.25 an hour more. I spent a little over 30 years at Warm Springs, first as a tribal forester, then as a Bureau of Indian Affairs forester. The Forest Service has been a great agency, and the BIA always looked up to the Forest Service. We didn't have a research branch, so almost everything we did on the Warm Springs Reservation was a direct result of interactions with the Forest Service. So when the opportunity came to come to the Mount Hood as a West Side Vets team lead, I took that opportunity.
And I started my Forest Service career with the International Programs Office, which is based in Washington, D.C., where I was managing our Africa programs. What we have within this agency, I think, is a great depth and breadth of knowledge and specialties all over the country, working in national forests from coast to coast. I decided I wanted to make a little bit of a switch in my career and start focusing more on a more distinct piece of land. And the idea of working on a ranger district was very, very appealing to me. People care deeply about how forests are managed, about how forests are used, and about decisions that we make on a national forest. So that's really part of one of the bigger attractions for me in my job is getting to understand what those communities desire and what those communities want from their national forests.
It makes you proud of the work that the Forest Service does and the opportunities the Forest Service can have. I've told a lot of people I just can't imagine why folks aren't enthused and don't enjoy the opportunity of working for the Forest Service.